The night of December 31st, 1817, is dark and suffocatingly still. On a dusty, rutted track between Shirur and Pune, in British India, a single column is on the move. It is not an army, but a detachment, a mere handful of men against the vastness of the Deccan Plateau. They are soldiers of the Honourable East India Company, and they are exhausted. They have been marching all night, a grueling 28-mile forced march, their boots kicking up the fine dust that cakes their faces and clogs their throats. They are marching to reinforce the British garrison at Pune, a vital outpost in the ongoing war against the vast Maratha Empire. They expect a routine reinforcement. They do not expect to march into history. In command is Captain Francis Staunton. He is a company man, a professional soldier tasked with a simple objective. His force is small, numbering only 834 men in total. The backbone of his column is not British, but Indian. They are sepoys, approximately 500 of them, drawn from the 2nd Battalion, 1st Regiment of Bombay Native Infantry. These are professional, disciplined soldiers trained in the European style, wearing the red coat of the company, but drawn from the very land they are now fighting to control. Alongside them marches a small detachment of European artillerymen, just 24 men from the Madras artillery. They are grim-faced, responsible for the column's only true firepower. 2 light 6-pounder cannons, bumping and rattling over the uneven ground. Accompanying this core force is a body of irregular cavalry, 300 men of the Pune Auxiliary Horse, their leader, Lieutenant Swanston, scouting the dark road ahead. They are hungry, they are thirsty, and they are bone-weary. The sun begins to rise on New Year's Day, 1818, revealing a landscape that is perilously open. As the morning haze burns off around 10 a.m., Captain Staunton's column reaches a stretch of high ground overlooking the Bhima River. What they see stops them dead in their tracks. It is not a patrol. It is not a raiding party. It is an ocean of men. Spread out below them, crossing the river, is the entire terrifying host of the Maratha Empire. It is the Grand Army of Peshwa Bajirao II, 28,000 men strong, a glittering, menacing sea of steel and horses. Staunton's 800 men have marched directly into the path of an avalanche. The sheer scale is impossible to comprehend. Staunton can see them clearly now. 20,000 Maratha cavalry, the finest horsemen in India, their spears and banners catching the morning light. And with them, 8,000 infantry. This is not some disorganized levy. These are the Peshwa's elite, his shock troops, thousands of grim Arab mercenaries, soldiers renowned for their fanaticism and ferocity in battle. They are under the command of Bapu Gokhale, the Peshwa's most competent and aggressive general, and watching from a nearby hill, surrounded by his staff, is the Peshwa himself, Bajirao II. This is not a detachment. It is the full power of the Maratha state, and it has just spotted Captain Staunton's tiny, isolated column. There is no time for fear, only for a cold, desperate calculation. Captain Staunton is a professional soldier, and he understands his predicament instantly. His tiny column is exposed on open ground. The 20,000 Maratha horsemen could sweep over them in a single thunderous charge, annihilating them in minutes. His 300 auxiliary cavalry are irregulars, useless against such a tide. His infantry, exhausted from 28 miles of marching, cannot possibly form a stable square in time. They will be ridden down and slaughtered. Retreat is impossible. Surrender to the Peshwa is not an option. He has only one chance, however slim. His eyes fix on the village just ahead, on the bank of the Bhima River. It is not a fortress. It is a simple, unremarkable village named Koregaon. It is a cluster of mud brick houses, dusty alleys, and a few slightly larger, stronger buildings known as garhis. It is, however, made of walls. It has narrow streets. It has choke points. It is a place where 20,000 cavalry cannot go. It is a place where 800 disciplined men might, just might, be able to hold off 8,000 infantry. It is their only hope. The order is given. It is no longer a march, it is a race. The 8th 34 Company soldiers, their legs burning and lungs aching, break into a desperate run. They sprint for the meagre cover of the village walls. The artillerymen, the 24 men of the Madras artillery, strain with ropes and levers, manhandling their 2 6-pounder cannons over the broken ground. These guns are their trump card, and they cannot be abandoned. From his vantage point, the Maratha general, Bapu Gokhale, sees the move. He is furious. He had assumed this tiny column was a lamb for the slaughter, and now it is dashing for cover. He immediately orders his own vanguard forward. Thousands of the elite Arab infantry, the Peshwa's shock troops, break from the main body and charge, racing Staunton's men to be the first to occupy Koregaon. The company troops win, but only by a hair's breadth. Staunton's leading sepoys pile into the village's outer houses, fanning out into the narrow streets. They have secured the position, but in doing so, they have walked into a trap. The village of Koregaon is now an island. The Maratha army, like a vast tide, flows around it. The 20,000 cavalry form a massive glittering ring, sealing every possible exit. They line the plains and the far bank of the river, their spears and standards creating a forest of steel. There will be no retreat. There will be no reinforcement. Worse, the Marathas now control the banks of the Bhima River. Staunton's men, already parched and exhausted from their all-night march, are cut off from their only source of water. They now face a desperate battle, not only against the enemy, but against the blistering heat of the Indian sun and a crippling, agonizing thirst. There is no time to rest, no time to build proper defences. The battle begins at the same moment the defence is organised. Captain Staunton and his adjutant, Lieutenant Pattinson, frantically direct their men. The sepoys are split into small units, garrisoning the flat-topped houses, knocking loopholes in the mud walls, and setting up fields of fire. The 2 6-pounder cannons are dragged into key intersections. They are not loaded with solid shot to smash walls, but with canister, canvas bags packed with hundreds of lead musket balls. They are now giant shotguns, aimed at point-blank range down the narrow alleys, waiting for the inevitable assault. The clock ticks past noon. The air is still, hot, and thick with dust. And then, the first wave hits. Bapu Gokhale unleashes his Arabs. Thousands of them, screaming war cries, charge into the village. The Maratha assault is not a cautious probe. It is an immediate, overwhelming human wave. Bapu Gokhale has unleashed his finest troops, the Arab mercenaries, and they intend to drown the company force by sheer numbers and ferocity. They come on in a dense mass, firing their matchlock muskets. The irregular crackle of their guns contrasting with the disciplined volleys the sepoys are preparing. They are armed not just with firearms, but with the deadly tulwar, the sharp, curved sword, of which they are masters. They pour into the narrow streets of Koregaon, seeking out the defenders. For Captain Staunton's men, the world shrinks to the size of a dusty alley or a single mud-brick doorway. This is not the open field warfare they were trained for. This is a claustrophobic, brutal brawl. The sepoys, positioned in the houses, fire their Brown Bess muskets from windows and hastily made loopholes. The volleys tear gaps in the charging Arab ranks, but there are always more to take their place. The attackers swarm the outer buildings, using their sheer weight to break down doors and climb over walls. The fighting becomes deeply personal, a desperate struggle of hand-to-hand combat. It is the 17-inch socket bayonet of the East India Company against the slashing tulwar of the Maratha Empire. In courtyards and dark rooms, the battle is decided by cold steel. The sepoys are disciplined, but the Arabs are ferocious, fighting with a religious and professional zeal. They begin to gain ground, pushing the defenders back, house by house, towards the center of the village. The air is thick with the choking black powder smoke from thousands of firearms, an acrid fog that stings the eyes and coats the throat. The sound is a deafening, continuous roar. The crack of muskets, the clash of steel, the screams of the wounded, and the constant thundering war cries of the attackers. The Marathas surge down a main street, a dense column of men packed shoulder to shoulder, sensing a breakthrough. They are charging directly towards one of the two 6-pounder cannons. The gun, commanded by Lieutenant Chisholm of the Madras Artillery, has been waiting. The gun crew works with a desperate, frantic precision. They load not with ball, but with canister. As the Arab column closes to point-blank range, Chisholm gives the order to fire. The 6-pounder erupts with a deafening boom that echoes off the surrounding houses. It unleashes a giant shotgun blast of lead balls into the packed ranks. The effect is horrifying. The front rank of the Arab column simply ceases to exist, shredded by the blast. Those behind are ripped apart, their charge broken in a single, bloody instant. The street is choked with the dead and wounded. Before the smoke even clears, the surviving artillerymen are ramming home another canister round. But the attack is not over. It is relentless. From another direction, a second wave hits, and this time they reach the guns. A furious melee erupts around the artillery piece. Lieutenant Chisholm, fighting to defend his cannon, is cut down and killed. The Arabs, with a triumphant roar, swarm the gun and capture it. This is the crisis of the battle. The loss of a single cannon is a devastating blow, both practically and morally. The Marathas have seized the EIC's most decisive weapon. The loss of the cannon is a catastrophic blow. The tide of the battle, which had been held back by a desperate, bloody finger in the dike, has now broken through. The triumphant cheers of the Arab mercenaries echo through the village as they swarm the captured 6-pounder. For the exhausted sepoys, this is the moment of crisis. Morale teeters on the brink of collapse. They have lost their officer, Lieutenant Chisholm, and now their most powerful weapon. The Marathas will, in moments, turn that cannon around and use its own canister shot to blast the defenders from their remaining strongpoints. The battle is about to be lost. From the smoke and chaos, another officer emerges. It is Lieutenant Pattinson, the battalion's adjutant. He is already wounded, his red coat stained darker, but he sees exactly what has happened. He understands that this is the decisive moment. There is no time for orders from Captain Staunton, no time to organize a formal flanking maneuver. The gun must be retaken, and it must be retaken now, or all is lost. He knows what this will cost. It is a suicidal mission, a charge directly into the teeth of the victorious Arabs. He gathers around him not a regiment, but a handful of men, perhaps a dozen sepoys who have seen their leader's intent. They are exhausted, dehydrated, and have been fighting for hours, but they fix their bayonets. Pattinson raises his sword and roars. It is not a grand, open-field charge across green fields. It is a desperate, scrambling, brutal brawl. He and his tiny band sprint through the body-strewn street, leaping over the dead and wounded, plunging directly into the mass of Arabs clustered around the captured gun. The clash is instantaneous and savage. The Arabs, confident in their victory, are momentarily stunned by the sheer audacity of this counterattack. They turn to meet the charge, raising their tulwars. It is the 17-inch British bayonet versus the curved Maratha blade in a chaotic, point-blank melee. Lieutenant Pattinson himself is a whirlwind, fighting with a desperation born of pure resolve. He is cut and slashed, wounded again, but he does not stop. He drives for the gun. The sepoys with him fight with equal ferocity, a small, disciplined knot of steel against a larger, more disorganized mass. They stab and thrust, their training taking over. The fight lasts only moments, but it is an eternity of grunting, screaming, and the wet, percussive sound of steel on flesh and bone. Men fall on both sides, but the momentum of the charge, the sheer, unexpected violence of it, carries the day. The Arabs break. Stunned by the loss, and with the rest of the company line now firing renewed volleys in support, they abandon the gun and retreat back into the alleys from which they came. Pattinson and his men, what's left of them, collapse over the 6-pounder. They have done it. They have recaptured the gun. Lieutenant Pattinson, severely wounded but alive, has become a legend, a living symbol of the battalion's refusal to break. The sepoys, seeing this act of incredible bravery, let out a ragged cheer. Their morale, which had been shattered, now hardens into a grim, unbreakable resolve. They have faced the worst and taken back their standard. This is the moral turning point. They are not just defending, they are attacking. They will not be overrun. They will not surrender. But the victory has come at a terrible cost. The small band is decimated, and Pattinson himself is grievously injured, and the battle is far from over. The Marathas still number in the tens of thousands. The sun continues to climb, and the village of Koregaon is fast becoming a furnace. The recapture of the gun has bought the company force time, but it has not bought them victory. It has only guaranteed that the fight will go on. The battle now settles into a grinding, horrifying war of attrition. The afternoon sun climbs to its zenith, turning the small enclosed village of Koregaon into a baked clay furnace. The heat is oppressive, a physical weight that presses down on the exhausted soldiers. And with the heat comes the true, insidious enemy: thirst. The 834 men of Staunton's column have been marching or fighting for nearly 18 hours straight. Their canteens have long since run dry. They are desperately, agonizingly dehydrated. Through the gaps in the houses, they can see the shimmering, cool water of the Bima River, just yards away. But to step outside the village perimeter is instant death. The riverbank is patrolled by thousands of Maratha horsemen, watching, waiting for any man foolish enough to make a break for it. The water is a taunting illusion of salvation. Inside the village, the fight is for every handful of dust. Captain Staunton's defence is not a single cohesive line, but a series of isolated strongpoints. Small groups of sepoys hold individual houses, courtyards, and the two stronger Gahai buildings. They have become small, self-contained fortresses. The Arabs come again, and again, and again. Bapu Gokale is furious. He is throwing his best troops, his 8,000 elite mercenaries, against a rabble of 800, and they are being held. He orders them forward in relentless waves. The fighting is claustrophobic and brutal. The sepoys, hidden behind the mud brick walls, wait until the last possible second. A mass of Arab infantry charges down an alley. A single cannon, loaded with canister, fires. The alley is cleared in a storm of lead. The survivors fall back, reform, and come again, this time clambering over the bodies of their own dead. Inside the houses, the air is almost unbreathable. The constant firing of the Brown Bess muskets fills the small rooms with a thick, acrid black powder smoke that stings the eyes and burns the lungs. It is a blinding fog, through which the men can only see the vague shapes of the enemy charging through the doorways. It becomes a fight of shadows and sounds. The sepoys, their lips cracked and tongues swelling from thirst, fight with a mechanical, desperate discipline. They ram home the charge, present their musket, fire into the smoke, and then draw their bayonets as the Arabs swarm the breach. The 17-inch blade is their last line of defence, and they use it with grim efficiency. But the Arabs are masters of this kind of combat, their tulwars slashing and hacking in the close confines where a long musket is clumsy. The sepoys are fighting two battles, one against the Arabs in front of them, and one against the crushing dehydration sapping their own strength. Their movements become sluggish. Their throats are too dry to even shout. The sound of the battle is a dull, percussive roar, the constant crackle of matchlocks, the deeper boom of the muskets, the high-pitched screams, and the constant, deep-throated rumble of 20,000 cavalry horses circling the village, a sound like distant thunder. The village itself is being pulverized, the mud walls shattering under the fire, kicking up more dust to choke the defenders. Staunton moves from post to post, his presence the only thing holding the fragmented defense together, knowing that his men are perilously close to collapse. From a safe distance, on a low hill overlooking the Bima River, Peshwa Bajirao II watches the battle unfold. He is the ruler of the Marathas, a prince of a proud and warlike empire. He is surrounded by his staff, his banners, and the glittering ranks of his personal guard. He has brought 28,000 men to this field. His intention was to sweep aside the British, to march on Poona, to reclaim his authority. Instead, he is forced to watch as his entire magnificent army, an ocean of cavalry and 8,000 of his finest infantry, is held at bay, defied, and humiliated by less than 900 company soldiers, most of them Indian sepoys, trapped in a tiny, insignificant mud village. This is not a battle, it is an insult. The Peshwa can see the 20,000 horsemen that are the pride of his empire, the very symbol of Maratha power. They are reduced to the role of spectators. They form a vast, glittering, and utterly useless circle around Koregaon. They are the jailers, but they cannot enter the prison. The narrow streets, now choked with rubble and bodies, are impassable to cavalry. Their only role is to prevent the exhausted EIC force from reaching the water and to cut down any man who tries to flee. They are a wall of steel, but a wall that cannot move inward. The Peshwa's most competent general, Bapu Gokhale, is on the field, directing the assaults, but he is trapped by the terrain as much as the defenders are. He is forced to feed his elite Arab mercenaries into a meat grinder. The village of Koregaon, which Staunton seized in a desperate race, has become the EIC's greatest weapon. Its simple geography is more effective than any fortress. The Maratha tactic of overwhelming shock assault is rendered impotent. An Arab column, hundreds strong, forms to charge a strong point. But the street narrows, funneling the entire charge into a single choke point, a doorway or the mouth of an alley, where a handful of disciplined sepoys with fixed bayonets can hold them back. The battle has become a bloody stalemate, a repeating cycle of horror. The Arabs charge, the cannons fire, the sepoys volley, and the charge breaks. The Marathas reform, and they come again. Captain Staunton's strong-point defence is working. He has turned every house into a miniature fortress. His men are fighting not as a battalion, but as dozens of small, isolated squads. Their discipline is the only thing connecting them. They load, they fire, they stab with the bayonet, and they hold their ground. And at the heart of this defence are the two 6-pounder cannons. They are the decisive element. In the hands of the Madras artillerymen, they are not siege weapons. They are street-fighting tools of terrifying efficiency. They are repositioned constantly, dragged from one alley to the next, always appearing where the Arab assault is thickest. Their blasts of canister shot, hundreds of musket balls at a time, are the only thing that can break the fanaticism of the Arab charge. The Peshwa watches as his best troops are repelled, time and time again, by these two guns and a handful of exhausted, dehydrated men. The sun begins to sink lower in the sky. The 12-hour mark approaches. The EIC force is still standing. The battle for Koregaon is not, at its heart, a story of British officers. It is the story of the 500 Indian soldiers of the 2nd Battalion, 1st Regiment of Bombay Native Infantry. These are the men who bear the brunt of the fighting. They are the ones crammed into the suffocating, smoke-filled houses. They are the ones meeting the Arab tulwars with their bayonets. They are fighting against their own countrymen, in service to a foreign trading company, and they are doing so with a discipline that borders on the superhuman. Their red coats are black with sweat, powder, and blood. Their faces are masks of caked dust, their eyes red-rimmed and hollow. Yet they do not break. The battle is a series of small, desperate vignettes. In one house, a handful of sepoys defend a doorway. They have built a barricade of broken furniture, and they fire their brown Bess muskets in a steady, rolling volley. As one man fires, he steps back from the loophole, and the man beside him, his musket reloaded, steps forward to take his place. It is a mechanical, repetitive action, the only thing keeping the charging Arabs at bay. The smoke is so thick they are aiming at sounds, not shapes. In another part of the village, the fight is on the flat rooftops. Arabs have scaled the walls and are fighting to get inside, to bypass the choke points in the streets. Sepoys meet them on the sun-baked clay, a dizzying, precarious fight just feet above the chaos below. A man falls, not from a bullet, but from a sword cut, toppling into the alley. adding to the piles of dead. The battle has no front line. It is everywhere. It is in the streets, in the houses, on the roofs, and in the small, dusty courtyards. The artillerymen are the nucleus of the defense. The 24 men of the Madras artillery are a brotherhood forged in fire. They are exhausted, scorched by the flash of their own guns, their arms aching from ramming home charge after charge. They know they are the primary target. The Arabs, having captured a gun once, try relentlessly to do it again. Every assault seems aimed at the cannons. The artillerymen and the sepoys protecting them fight as one. The sepoys form a living wall of bayonets around the 6-pounders, a grim, bristling hedge of steel, while the gunners serve their pieces. They fire canister at ranges so short they are scorched by the enemy's return fire. This is a new kind of soldier, a blend of Western discipline and Indian fortitude. The Marathas, and particularly the Arabs, do not understand what they are facing. They are accustomed to armies breaking under their ferocious charges. They expect the sepoys to rout, but the sepoys do not rout. Their training under men like Captain Staunton and Lieutenant Pattinson has burned into them a sense of cohesion and professional pride that even exhaustion, dehydration, and overwhelming odds cannot shatter. They hold their ground, not for a king or a country thousands of miles away, but for the man standing next to them, for the honour of their regiment. This small mud brick village has become the crucible for the reputation of the Bombay native infantry. They are holding back 28,000 men, and they will not take one step back. As the day wears on, this resolve only hardens. The thirst is maddening, the heat is debilitating, but the line holds. As the brutal afternoon grinds into evening, the sun finally begins to dip below the horizon, painting the smoke-filled sky in hues of red and orange. The light begins to fail, and with it, the ferocity of the Maratha attacks. The fighting has now raged for nearly 12 continuous hours. Inside the village, the defenders are not men, but ghosts. They are running on pure distilled adrenaline, their bodies long past the point of collapse. The thirst is a torment that has transcended pain and become a dull, all-encompassing agony. Their lips are cracked and black, their tongues swollen. Many of the wounded die not from their injuries, but from the simple, agonizing lack of water. Around 9 p.m., a strange, unnatural silence falls over Koregaon. The firing sputters and dies. The screaming stops. After 12 hours of relentless, deafening noise, the sudden quiet is shocking. The Arab mercenaries, having taken horrific casualties and having failed to break the defense, finally pull back. The Peshwa's generals, stunned by the ferocity of the resistance, call off the assaults for the night. They are content to leave the trapped company soldiers to their fate. The Marathas know the EIC force is shattered. Without food or water, the 20,000 cavalry are still in place. The trap is still set. The morning sun, they believe, will finish the job. Captain Francis Staunton takes stock in the darkness. He has held the village. He has defied an entire army, but the cost is staggering. His small force is decimated. The ground is littered with the bodies of his men, sepoys and artillerymen, side by side. Lieutenant Pattinson, the hero of the gun, is severely wounded. Ammunition is critically low. The men are, quite simply, finished. They cannot fight another battle. They cannot even endure another day of heat and thirst. To stay in Koregaon is to surrender to a slow, agonizing death. Staunton makes a decision of incredible audacity. He will not wait for the morning. He will not surrender. He will abandon the village and retreat. It is a desperate, almost suicidal gamble. They are surrounded by 28,000 men, including 20,000 cavalry, whose entire purpose is to prevent this very thing. But the darkness is his only ally. He gives the order, passed in whispers. They will evacuate. The remaining sepoys, moving like shadows, quietly gather those of the wounded who can be moved. They must leave the dead. There is no time. They muffle the wheels of their one remaining 6-pounder cannon with cloth. Every sound, a cough, a misplaced step, the jingle of a harness, could bring the entire Maratha army down upon them. With agonizing slowness, the shattered remnants of the 2nd Battalion, 1st Regiment, slip out of the ruined, body-strewn village. They melt into the same darkness they had marched out of the night before, moving with a ghostly silence. They are not retreating towards Poona, their original destination, but back the way they came, a 28-mile march to their garrison at Shirur. Incredibly, the Marathas do not pursue. The Peshwa's army, so vast and so powerful, fails to detect the escape of its tiny, wounded prey. The 20,000 horsemen, confident that the trap is sealed, hold their positions, waiting for a dawn that will reveal an empty village. Captain Staunton, through sheer bloody-minded resolve, has led his men into an impossible fight, held his ground for 12 hours, and then, in an act of final defiance, slipped through the fingers of an entire army. Dawn breaks on January 2nd, 1818. The Peshwa, Bajirao Tseka, wakes on his hill expecting the inevitable surrender. His generals prepare for the final token assault to accept the submission of the few thirst-maddened survivors. The 20,000 Maratha cavalrymen, who have held their ring of steel all night, tighten the cordon. The Arab infantry, their numbers thinned but their resolve to finish the job intact, begin their advance into the silent village of Koregaon. They are met with nothing. No musket fire, no cannon blast, no desperate last-ditch bayonet charge. The village is dead. Cautiously, the Arab mercenaries filter through the narrow, corpse-filled streets. They find the houses empty, the makeshift barricades abandoned. They find the bloodstains, the discarded equipment, the unburied dead of the company, but they do not find a single living enemy soldier. The EIC force has vanished. Captain Staunton and his 800 men have evaporated into the night, slipping through a net cast by 28,000 men. For the Peshwa, the realization is a profound and public humiliation. He, the ruler of the Marathas, with his entire grand army, has been defied, fought to a standstill, and ultimately eluded by a single exhausted battalion. He had them trapped, cut off from water, and outnumbered more than 30 to 1. Yet, they were gone. The victory he had assumed was his had been snatched away. The cost of this failure is laid bare in the streets of Koregaon. The village is a charnel house, and the vast majority of the dead are his own. His elite Arab mercenaries, the shock troops of his empire, have been shattered, paying an enormous price in blood for every inch of ground they failed to hold. While the Peshwa reels from this blow to his prestige, Captain Staunton's shattered column is staggering the final agonizing miles back to Shirur. They are not a triumphant force, but a collection of wounded, exhausted survivors. They have no food, no water, and are carrying as many of their wounded as they can, including the badly injured Lieutenant Pattinson. They have achieved the impossible, but they are a broken battalion. When they finally stumble into the British garrison, their appearance is shocking. They are ghosts in tattered, bloody red coats. But as Staunton makes his report, the narrative begins to change. This was not a defeat. This was not a panicked retreat. This was a legendary stand. The East India Company, locked in the decisive Third Anglo-Maratha War, immediately seizes upon the story. This is the propaganda victory they desperately need. The news spreads like wildfire. 834 men, trapped and exhausted, had held off the entire Maratha army for 12 hours and then slipped away. The Battle of Koregaon becomes a symbol, overnight, of the company's, and specifically the sepoys' unbreakable discipline and resolve. It is a story of how a small, disciplined, European-led force could defy and defeat an overwhelmingly vast traditional Indian army. The blow to Bajirao II's prestige is catastrophic. His authority, already weakened, is now shattered. His own men have seen him fail to destroy a tiny trapped enemy. The war is not over, but the moral victory at Koregaon is a turning point. The battle is over, but the legend is just beginning. The East India Company does not let this victory fade into memory. They understand the power of symbols. The stand at Koregaon is not just a tactical victory, it is a political statement. It is proof that the company's new order, built on discipline, training, and a multi-ethnic military, is superior to the old, feudal power of the Maratha princes. This battle must be immortalized, not just in dispatches, but in stone. The decision is made to erect a monument on the very battlefield where the fight took place. It will not be a simple marker. It will be a grand obelisk, a towering pillar of victory to be seen from miles around, a permanent reminder of what happened here on New Year's Day, 1818. This obelisk, known as the Koregaon pillar, is erected with remarkable speed. It becomes a site of pilgrimage, a tangible piece of the new British Raj, solidifying its claim on the Deccan. But the most significant thing about this monument is not its height or its grandeur. It is the names inscribed upon its base. The East India Company carves into the stone the names of the soldiers who died in the defense of the village. This, in itself, is a revolutionary act. In the great battles of European history, the common soldier was often nameless, his sacrifice unrecorded, a mere statistic in a general's report. But here, the company lists them, and crucially, it lists them side by side. The names of the British officers, like Lieutenant Chisholm of the artillery, are there. But alongside them are the names of the Indian sepoys of the 2nd Battalion, 1st Regiment, and the Indian gunners of the Madras artillery. This is a deliberate, powerful message. It tells the sepoys of the Bombay Army that their sacrifice is valued, that their names are worthy of being carved in stone alongside their British commanders. It is a brilliant piece of military psychology. It fosters a powerful esprit de corps, a regimental pride that will become the bedrock of the company's military power in India. The Koregaon Battalion, as the 2nd 1st Bombay Native Infantry comes to be known, is showered with honours. The battle becomes a foundational myth. For decades to come, the story of Koregaon is told and retold in every sepoy barracks. It is the ultimate example of what discipline, loyalty, and bravery can achieve against impossible odds. The story is not one of British soldiers conquering India. It is a story of company soldiers, British and Indian, standing together to defeat a common foe. The bravery of Lieutenant Pattinson is celebrated, but so is the unyielding discipline of the 500 sepoys who refuse to break. The 24 Madras artillerymen become legends. This single, desperate 12-hour fight is elevated into something far greater than itself. It is a symbol of resolve. For the British, it is proof of their right to rule. For the Marathas, it is the beginning of the end, a public failure from which Peshwa Bajirao II will never recover. And for the sepoys of the Bombay Army, it is their defining moment, their Thermopylae, a bloody benchmark against which all future acts of valour will be measured. The pillar itself, standing silent over the Pima River, becomes a testament to the fact that empires are not just built on grand armies, but on small, desperate, impossible stands in forgotten villages. How did this happen? How, in a purely tactical sense, did 834 exhausted, dehydrated men defy 28,000? The answer is not a miracle. It is a brutal, cold lesson in modern warfare, a perfect case study in how terrain, technology, and discipline can overcome a staggering numerical disadvantage. The Battle of Koregaon was not a fight of 28,000 versus 834. It was a series of smaller, more specific confrontations, and in each one, Captain Staunton held the decisive advantage. First, the most imposing element of the Peshwa's army was strategically irrelevant. The 20,000 Maratha horsemen, a glittering sea of lances and banners, did nothing. They were a containment force, a jailer's wall, but in the claustrophobic confines of Koregaon's narrow streets and mud brick houses, a horse was a liability, not a weapon. They could not charge, they could not maneuver, they could only sit and watch, their vast power utterly neutralized. This reduced the impossible odds significantly. The true battle was fought between the Peshwa's 8,000 elite Arab infantry and Staunton's 834 men. The odds were still 10-1, but this was a fight Staunton could win. He won it, first, by choosing the battlefield. The race for Koregaon was the single most important tactical decision of the day. By securing the village, Staunton turned a death trap into a fortress. The village's geography did the fighting for him. The narrow alleys and small walled compounds broke up the Maratha formations. Bapu Gokhale's tactic of overwhelming shock assaults was rendered impotent. He could not bring his superior numbers to bear. He could not attack on a wide front. He was forced to feed his elite troops, piecemeal, into a series of narrow, pre-prepared kill zones, one street and one doorway at a time. Here, the company's weapons and training proved superior. The Arab mercenaries were brave, armed with matchlock muskets and fearsome tulwar swords. They were masters of close-quarters combat. But the sepoys were armed with the Brown Bess musket. It was more reliable than the matchlock, but its true deadliness came from the 17-inch socket bayonet. In the tight confines of a captured house, the bayonet charge that retook the gun, or the steady hedge of steel that held a doorway, was the perfect weapon. It kept the deadlier swordsman at bay, a wall of points that the Arabs could not get past. But the decisive, battle-winning element was technological. It was the two 6-pounder cannons. These guns, commanded by the Madras artillery, were the core of Staunton's strong-point defence. They were not used to batter walls, but as giant street-sweeping shotguns. Loaded with canister shot, a simple canvas bag filled with hundreds of lead musket balls, they were murderously effective. As an Arab column, hundreds strong, massed for a charge down a narrow alley, the 6-pounder would fire. The resulting blast was a cone of lead that simply annihilated the front ranks, turning the entire charging column into a pulverized, screaming mass of flesh. It was this weapon, more than any other, that broke the morale of the Arab infantry. They were charging into a mechanical meat grinder. Koregaon was, in the end, a victory of artillery. It was a triumph of a modern, combined arms tactic, disciplined infantry in strongpoints, supported by mobile, canister-firing artillery, over a brave, but ultimately antique, form of warfare. The Battle of Koregaon was not a grand, sweeping engagement that decided the fate of a nation in a single day. It was not a Waterloo or a Trafalgar, involving hundreds of thousands of men and shifting the borders of empires. It was, at its heart, a desperate, brutal, and intimate skirmish, a 12-hour brawl in a dusty, forgotten village. Its importance is not measured in the territory gained, for none was. It is measured in prestige, in morale, and in the creation of a legend that would echo for a century. In the immediate aftermath, the Third Anglo-Maratha War continued. But the Peshwa, Bajirao II, never recovered from the humiliation. He had failed, in full view of his entire army, to destroy a single exhausted battalion. His authority, already teetering, crumbled. The battle was a massive blow to his prestige, and in the feudal world of the Maratha Confederacy, prestige was the currency of power. His generals and vassals, having witnessed his best troops, the elite Arab mercenaries, shattered against the discipline of the company's sepoys, lost their faith in his ability to win. The war would end in his defeat and the dissolution of the Maratha Empire, paving the way for complete British dominance. The true legacy, however, was written in stone and spirit. The Koregaon pillar, standing stark against the Deccan sky, became more than a monument. It became a rallying point. For the East India Company, it was the ultimate propaganda tool, a perfect encapsulation of their narrative, that their rule was built on a new kind of power, a power of discipline, training, and multi-ethnic cooperation that could withstand the old, chaotic tides of feudal India. The names on the pillar, British and Indian, side by side, were a masterstroke, forging a bond of regimental honour that would become the steel backbone of the British Indian Army. For the soldiers of the Bombay Army, Koregaon became their origin story. It was proof that the sepoy, when trained and led in the European style, was the equal of any soldier on earth. It was a story of endurance, a tale of fighting not just an army, but the agonizing torment of heat and thirst. The image of Lieutenant Pattinson, wounded and bloody, leading a desperate bayonet charge to recapture a fallen gun, became the standard for officer conduct. The unyielding stand of the 500 sepoys, holding their mud-walled houses against waves of ferocious Arabs, became the benchmark for enlisted valor. The battle itself was a chilling preview of industrial warfare. It was a victory of technology and tactics over sheer mass. It demonstrated that a few well-placed artillery pieces, firing canister shot into a packed street, could functionally annihilate an enemy's numerical superiority. It was a victory of the bayonet over the sword, of disciplined volleys fired from a prepared position over the massed, frenzied charge. It was a 12-hour, claustrophobic nightmare, a fight of smoke, dust, and blood, decided at point-blank range. Captain Staunton's tiny 834-man column, by sheer chance, found itself at the nexus of history, and by sheer, bloody-minded, professional discipline, it held the line. They were not supposed to be there, they were not supposed to fight, and they were certainly not supposed to win. But in the furnace of Koregaon, they forged a legend that would outlive the empire they fought for. Thanks for watching. If you found this story fascinating, please hit the like button, subscribe for more, and share your thoughts in the comments. We'll see you in the next video.